make her one of us. A loving cup, a loving cup.
Welcome to our countdown of the top 10 most outrageous films of the 1930s. During this era, Hollywood was a wild playground where rules were made to be broken. Well, until the censors caught up, we're diving into the pre-code years, when sex, violence, and taboo topics were all fair game. You're in for a treat, so sit back, relax, and get ready for some jaw-dropping moments.
Trust yourself. Oh, do it again. I like it. Do it again.
Starting off at number 10, it's Redheaded Woman, 1932, starring the seductive Jean Harlow. In this movie, she plays Lil, a woman who uses her charms to manipulate men, break up marriages, and climb the social ladder. Sounds scandalous? Well, it was. By today's standards, Lil's behavior might not seem too outrageous, but back then, the idea of a woman doing all this and facing zero consequences was shocking. This film showed that not every bad girl gets her comeuppance, which was unheard of after the production code took hold in 1934. Redheaded Woman pushed boundaries by letting its anti-heroine win, a move that couldn't happen again once Hollywood cracked down. Definitely a bold start to our list.
What's that singing?
The Christians on their way to the arena dungeon.
Next up at number 9, it's Cecil B. DeMille's The Sign of the Cross, 1932. This film gave audiences plenty to talk about, from Claudette Colbert's iconic milk bath scene to gladiator fights and a seductive dance under the moonlight. It was so risque that entire scenes were cut when it was re-released after 1934. The film even contributed to the rise of the Catholic Legion of Decency, which later worked with the censors to ensure moral righteousness in Hollywood. If you wanted to see wild excess and decadence in the early 1930s, The Sign of the Cross delivered, and then some. A controversial film that helped shape Hollywood's future. At number 8, we have Morocco, 1930, a film famous for pushing gender norms, with Marlene Dietrich at its center. In one memorable scene, Dietrich wears a tuxedo, kisses a woman, and walks away without a care in the world. This was a groundbreaking moment in queer cinema history. Dietrich's androgynous style made waves, and her boldness helped her become a symbol for LGBTQ+ culture, long before such representation was common. Morocco made a lasting impact, showing that even in the 1930s, films could challenge traditional ideas of gender and sexuality, truly ahead of its time.
Taught me after what I've done.
Listen, when women go wrong, men go right after them.
At number 7 is She Done Him Wrong, 1933, starring the legendary Mae West. West didn't just flirt with the boundaries, she bulldozed them. Her character, a nightclub singer, toys with men and delivers some of the most famous double entendres in cinema history. The film's boldness wasn't just in West's suggestive dialogue, but in how her character was unapologetically in control of her own sexuality, a theme that made censors very uncomfortable. Mae West knew exactly what she was doing, and she made a fortune doing it. She Done Him Wrong was a prime example of pre-code Hollywood's playful disregard for the moral boundaries that would soon tighten.
Have you ever felt your brain catch fire and a curious, dreadful thing go right through your body?
Number 6 on our list is Design for Living, 1933, directed by Ernst Lubitsch. This film features a daring menage a trois between Miriam Hopkins and two men, quite the scandal for 1933. The idea of three people living together in an unconventional relationship shocked audiences and upset censors. The movie was banned from being re-released after the production code was enforced, showing just how far it pushed the envelope. Design for Living dared to explore non-traditional relationships in a way that was practically unheard of at the time, earning its place as one of the most controversial films of the decade.
You killed her as I am about to kill you.
Coming in at number 5 is The Black Cat, 1934, a horror film filled with themes of Satanism, necrophilia, and occult rituals. Oh, and there's a skinning scene. Definitely not for the faint of heart. For a film made just before the code took full effect, this movie went all in on the macabre. It remains one of the most unsettling horror films of its era, packed with taboo themes that would soon be forbidden. The Black Cat gave audiences a chilling glimpse of the dark side of cinema, and it still stands as a haunting reminder of just how far filmmakers were willing to go before the censorship hammer came down.
The thing on this table isn't human.
Its cries are human.
Do you know what it is, what I began with?
No.
At number 4, we have Island of Lost Souls, 1932, based on H.G. Wells' The Island of Dr. Moreau. This film's themes of vivisection, animal-human hybrids, and the mad doctor's god complex stirred up outrage worldwide. The film was so controversial that many countries banned it outright, while others censored it heavily. It pushed the boundaries of science fiction and horror, blending the two in a way that had never been done before. With its dark themes and unsettling imagery, Island of Lost Souls remains one of the most disturbing films of the pre-code era. Its influence on horror is still felt today.
But you must use men, not let them use you. You must be a master, not a slave.
Sliding into number 3 is Babyface, 1933, starring Barbara Stanwyck as Lily Powers, a woman who uses her sexuality to escape poverty and climb the corporate ladder. What made Babyface so outrageous wasn't just its depiction of a woman using men to get ahead. It was the fact that Lily started out as a victim of child prostitution. The rawness of her story, combined with its sexual frankness, was too much for many censors to handle. Babyface pushed pre-code Hollywood to its limits, challenging not just sexual taboos, but the portrayal of women as independent, powerful figures. A true classic that still packs a punch today. At number 2, we have Scarface, 1932, one of the most violent films of the pre-code era. Paul Muni stars as Tony Camonte, a ruthless gangster who uses violence to climb to the top. The film's extreme violence shocked audiences, and even the Hays office delayed its release multiple times, forcing changes to soften the brutality. But despite the cuts, Scarface remained a landmark in gangster cinema, setting the standard for future crime films. Scarface showed that pre-code Hollywood wasn't just about pushing sexual boundaries, it was also willing to depict raw, brutal violence. Its legacy as a groundbreaking gangster film is undeniable.
They're going to make you one of them.
Finally, at number 1, we have Freaks, 1932, the most outrageous film of the decade. Directed by Todd Browning, this film was unlike anything audiences had ever seen. Featuring real-life circus performers with physical disabilities, Freaks horrified audiences with its grotesque imagery and disturbing revenge plot. The reaction was so extreme that theaters reported walkouts, fainting, and even lawsuits. Despite its initial failure, Freaks is now hailed as a cult classic. Freaks was the film that went too far for 1930s audiences, but today it's considered a cult classic. And there you have it, our countdown of the 10 most outrageous films of the 1930s. These pre-code films pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable on screen, tackling taboo topics like sex, violence, and power in ways that shocked audiences then, and still managed to turn heads today. Before the censors tightened their grip in 1934, Hollywood filmmakers were free to explore daring, provocative themes, creating films that were raw, bold, and ahead of their time. Each of these movies left an indelible mark on cinema history, showing us how far art can go when it's unrestrained. So the next time you hear someone say that classic films are all squeaky clean, just remember these pre-code gems. They were anything but. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to stay tuned for more deep dives into cinema's wildest moments.